Welcome to Podcast 83, a regular look at the news, stories, and trends related to Michigan's 83 counties from the Michigan Association of Counties.
Good morning or afternoon, everyone, depending on when you're listening to this. This is Podcast 83, the podcast put on by the Michigan Association of Counties. We're going to do a little different format this week. We're going to do a little deeper dive in an issue, something that we touched on recently in a few of our podcasts on the juvenile justice package. We do have a package that's introduced, a large package of bills that have been introduced. And today, Samantha Gibson is joining us, who's from our MAC staff, who handles our health and human services issue. This is an issue we've been working on for a long time and discussed in our committees for a long time. So we want to do a little deeper dive on it, talk a little bit more about the package, what's our role in it, how it impacts counties. So with that, I'm going to just kick it over to Sam. Sam, you want to start us off?
Yes, thank you, Steve. So a little bit of background on the package. Governor Whitmer created the Michigan Task Force on Juvenile Justice Reform, and they provided a set of 32 recommendations to the legislature in July of 2022. So since that time, MAC, along with other stakeholders, the prosecutors, sheriffs, Michigan Center for Youth Justice, we've worked really diligently on the policy and what these bills are going to look like. And we've reached a point where the bills have been introduced. They were introduced Thursday, May 15th. Those are House Bills 4624 through 4643. It's a 20 bill package. And those 20 bills come from 6 priorities from that set of recommendations. So we've designated 2 tiers of priorities. The first set is 6. Again, that came out to be this 20 bill package. I'll give kind of a high level overview of what those bills look like and really focus on what's most important for counties. First and foremost in the package is the County Child Care Fund reimbursement rate change. So currently counties are reimbursed for community-based services from the state at 50%. This package would increase that reimbursement rate to 75%, which was also in the governor's budget recommendation and was in the House and Senate DHHS budgets that were passed in the last few weeks. So
obviously a very good sign when you have all 3 mechanisms that participate in the budget process recommending it. Now you have policy bills introduced that kind of amplify the same thing, correct?
Yes, absolutely. And even if, the final budget comes out and that reimbursement increase isn't in there, the policy seems to be at a point where it's going to get done. So in future budgets, we'll see that reimbursement increase.
Do you know what the dollar figure, I'm putting you on the spot here, but do you know what the dollar figure is on that from 50% to 75% increases?
Yeah, it's 31.5 million cost to the state, and it's general fund dollars.
Okay. And then that is distributed based on what? Forgive me, because I don't know the distribution method on it. Is it based on a number of cases or something in your county?
So it's a reimbursement. So a county can spend however much they'd like, and then the state will reimburse them hopefully soon at 75%.
Okay, great. Go ahead, continue on. Sorry.
Thank you. Along with the child care fund reimbursement increase, there are juvenile justice best practices that will have to be implemented. So risk screening and assessment tools to inform decision-making for judges, determining what's the best course of action for a youth in the court system, whether that's community-based service, going to a juvenile facility. There's mental health screening tools that will be implemented as well. The package also expands the Michigan Indigent Defense Commission to have a representative for juveniles on the commission. And it would also take all of the previously approved standards by Laura and apply them to juveniles. And then all future approved standards will apply to juveniles as well.
So let's touch on that a little bit, because we've got some other indigent defense issues going on with relations to salaries and the impact that has on county prosecutors. So, and what's county's role in that? And do we have to enforce those standards or implement those standards? Should this legislature not meet that financial obligation? We don't think so. We've got an opinion that says we don't. So let's talk about the impact of expanding now to juveniles. So we're expanding existing standards to juveniles and potentially future standards. So on the existing standards that the expansion occurs to, the state has to fund that, correct?
Correct. Currently, this bill doesn't have a dollar amount tied to it. It's strictly a policy bill. And based on conversations we've had, it looks like we won't see the standards, updated to include juveniles for several years out. I mean, even current standards, Standard 8, for example, they recommended that in 2018 and Laura didn't approve it until this past October. So it's going to take time before the standards are updated for juveniles. And then once that happens, the grant mechanism will reflect that and counties will receive increased disbursement dollars.
Yeah, that's good to know. So it is going to take some time to implement that. It'll be interesting to see when we cross that bridge, whenever it is, on the expansion of juveniles, what if it's not funded by the state, do those previous standards have to be adopted? Well, obviously they've been adopted to this point, but now you're changing a standard, existing standard, to expand it. A lot of different implications there if funding isn't met, but a bridge we don't have to cross for a few years, it sounds like.
Yeah, thankfully we have time to figure that out. And I mean, even now with Standard 8, we're still trying to figure that out. So
Right.
Some unprecedented things when it comes to MIDC as of now. Couple other things in the package. The bills would expand the state appellate defender office to include appellate services for juveniles. It expands the Diversion Act so that all offenses, with an exception for youth committing a specified juvenile violation, are eligible for pre-court diversion. And they'll use those risk screening and assessment tools, mental health screening tools, to determine diversion eligibility and what, diversion program is best suited for the child. Again, more screening tools. The package would revise the factors that are considered by the court for traditional waivers and better account for a child's developmental maturity, emotional and mental health, the needs of the victim, whether or not that child has access to treatment and rehabilitation in the juvenile justice system. There's also a portion in that bill that would say, every 6 months or within a major change to the child's life, their case would be reevaluated, their sentencing, if you will, although it's not technically called that in the juvenile system. And then a few extra things here, not super relevant to counties, but just to wrap up the package. Expanding the Office of the Children's Ombudsman for handling and reporting incidents in juvenile facilities, in addition to the work they do in the child welfare system. And then the last thing I want to touch on here, I know we are, of course, opposed to unfunded mandates, but we did come to a consensus and a compromise on this portion of the package, and that's the elimination of fines and fees associated with youth court involvement. So between the child care fund reimbursement increase, and then the Department of Health and Human Services has an administrative reimbursement costs about 10% to counties. That'll balance out and make up for the cost, or I should say the not imposing the cost of fines and fees on juveniles. And truly, I mean, when you consider it this way, right, you're a parent, you or another one of your children are potentially a victim of, something that another child in your home has committed. For the court to ask that parent to then turn around and pay the fines and fees for their children, I mean, it's a difficult thing to do. And there's also studies that suggest that not imposing those fines and fees on youth, they're more likely to receive the real rehabilitation that they need. When the court calls and that they're asking you for money, you're going to avoid it. You're not going to seek the treatment that they've set out for you. So removing these fines and fees, it's going to increase the rehabilitation rate for youth.
Right. It makes total sense. And what you're saying on top of that is that the county isn't out of those fines and fees. It's going to be made up somewhere else, right?
Right. And there will still be fines and fees for restitution and fees related to the victims fund. So victims will still be reimbursed if needed, but all other fines and fees are eliminated.
Great. And then you mentioned but these are House bills only, right? We don't have a Senate package as well, probably because of the mass, just the size of the package alone, it doesn't make sense. And then kind of where are we at on these bills as far as our position?
So I will say on the Senate note, there will be a package the same exact package introduced in the Senate. It's just a matter of when. I think it should be relatively soon, but we do anticipate them moving through the House faster than through the Senate. And we are supportive of this package. A coalition of stakeholders, including MAC, is signing on to a letter of support to members of the House Criminal Justice Committee, as well as the Senate Judiciary Committee, letting them know that we've really work grouped this language, and we need to see it get done.
What sort of time frame are we looking at on the first committee hearing, do we think? I know that's kind of looking into your crystal ball. We're in the middle of budget time. Do we foresee maybe getting committee hearing in the next few weeks if we're, at the end of May, before mid-June?
Yeah, I anticipate a hearing at least before summer. So
Okay.
within the next few weeks, for sure. When the initial date that the bills were supposed to be introduced on, there was a little bit of delay. They would have been introduced on a Thursday and a hearing the following Tuesday.
Okay.
So with that in mind, I'd like to think we'll have one 2 or 3 weeks from now.
Great. And then do we anticipate any opposition to this package?
No known opposition from stakeholders. There are some legislators that have a little bit of heartburn with the package. I think from a fiscal perspective, that $31.5 million in general fund money is given some heartburn to some reps, but it's legislation that needs to be done. It's necessary reform. So we'll keep working, meeting with legislators, letting them know that not only are these services necessary to truly rehabilitate our youth, but also that if you want counties to be able to provide them, we need the reimbursement increase.
Mm-hmm.
So that being said, this package without the child care fund reimbursement increase, I don't think would go anywhere.
Right. Yeah, we've gotten a lot of feedback on that 50 to 75% increase on the reimbursement rate. And I know a lot of people are happy to see that. So hopefully we can make that stick as we move through the process. Well, that was a great update. Very thorough. Thank you. Anything else you want to add before we close this down?
That's everything for me. Hope
All right.
everybody enjoyed.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Sam. And of course, if you have any questions or comments, you can reach out to our staff. Sam specifically handles this issue. She'll be happy to get back to you, or reach out to one of us and we'll point you in the right direction. So thanks again, everyone. Have a great week.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Podcast 83.